our mission is to create opportunities for anyone to learn and share the knowledge about the field of user experience. That isn't just limited to folks that are wanting to do user experience itself, but we also get participants that are product owners, project managers, developers, different types of stakeholders, and leaders in technology space, and people just trying to understand more about maybe how they can integrate UX into their organization. So if you do know of anyone that you think would be interested, please let them know about Downtown Orlando UX and share with them a little bit about what UX is so that they can begin to participate. It really is a collaboration. If you do UX today, you'll know that we really couldn't do our jobs without working with a large group of other people. So yeah. Let's see here. Normally when we are at a active event where we're all present with each other, Tech Systems is there with us, providing us with beer and sponsorship, and if you're and pizza, and if you're looking to connect and find an opportunity in UX, Tech Systems does do placement for UX. They specialize in that and are working with not only companies in our direct community here in Central Florida, but outside the Central Florida area as well. So reaching out to them is a great way to kind of kickstart things if you need to, or if you're looking to maybe pivot your role into something else. And before we go into the normal conversation, I think what we'll do is a little bit of an icebreaker, and we're going to use the chat for this portion of it, and we'll read off some of the things that people contribute here. So if you could, in the chat, describe a way that you've been connecting with others through all of this, where we've maybe been isolating ourselves a little bit. What are some ways that you've found that you have been connecting with different people? We'll read some of those off. Discord, yes. LinkedIn. Slack and Twitter, okay. Old school Facebook, huh? WhatsApp, yes. Meetups and conferences, yeah, this is a great way right here. It's interesting the conferences that have been getting made more available these days. I don't know if you guys know that DC Comics had a big open opportunity on Saturday where they went through a lot of their movies and new media that they're introducing for the year. Messaging, yes. Snapchat, meetups. Yes, fandom. Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, it's kind of cool, a lot of these meetups that have, or conferences that have been happening virtually, because it, you know I wouldn't have had an opportunity to attend a lot of these just because of work or the costs involved. So it's been pretty neat. All right, maybe we can dive. These are all great things. I hope the group has maybe seen a couple of things, like, you know, Discord. Not everybody uses Discord. If you go out there and download it and try it out, there is a whole community out there of people that you can connect with, which is kind of cool. But maybe there are some things in the chat here that you haven't done before, haven't tried or thought of, and hopefully it's a chance for you all to dive into a different way to connect with folks. So we'll go into the first question here.
Yeah, so what kind of education did you pursue to get to where you are today? Some examples here are non-formal, learning from work experience, mentorship, self-taught, or a formal education, learning from a university, obtaining certifications or degrees. So go go ahead and use that hand raise feature, and then we can kind of go around.
Christina, I saw that you added in the chat there that you did General Assembly. Do you want to share a little bit about what General Assembly is and what it has meant for you?
Sure. It is basically professional training in all kinds of fields. One of them happens to be user experience. This one is the immersive one that I went through, which involved like over 400 hours of attending class, full-time class. So it was like 40 hours a week of class time. And then we have projects on top of that. And we were able to work with real clients. Mine were the Ponce City Market, which is a big like open mall type of thing. And the other one was the Home Depot.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. I think, from what I understand of General Assembly too, especially out of the Atlanta area, they do a great job of partnering with companies and organizations in the area and helping people get connected so that they can do active projects with real companies, which is kind of nice.
Lots of good responses to the question. In the chat, we've got, I think, full UX squad, Springboard Bootcamp. Some people are saying they have lots of non-formal training, responding to the non-formal and formal categories down below in that slide there. If you can, please jump into the participant panel. We'd love to hear your voices too. So jump into the participants panel and click the raise hand feature, or just at the point where we're kind of in between people talking, just feel free to jump in as well. And tell us a little more about your background. I know for me personally, I got a degree in graphic design, kind of went into the web design field and spent a long time in the agency web design and front-end development world before getting my first job in a SaaS product organization, mostly on front end, and then kind of leaning more into UX and then getting back into product design and UX research now is mostly where I focus. But I think it's true of a lot of people. They come from the graphic design path, but UX is a field where you can come from a lot of different directions, not just specific formal educations in something design related or UX related, and sometimes partially related. I've met a lot of UXers coming from industrial design backgrounds and other fields. So feel free to speak up and let us know kind of how you got into the field.
Yeah, Rick, you said something about work-related experience.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started out doing graphic design, web design. That was what my focus at FSU was. And I mean, web design in the early 2000s sort of evolved into, in a lot of ways, user experience design, doing wireframes, doing layouts, architecting information. And so a lot of my experience came from, basically working on a development team, doing the front end work. And mostly, I mean, I was with Osteo Accounting for about 11 years. So that was a great test bed. I had a lot of internal clients to get feedback off of, test off of, gather requirements from. I had external clients in the form of the citizens that we could do polls for them and try to identify issues where we could make improvements from the citizen-facing side. So it was a real good way to, in that situation, to learn, just directly through doing. So I mean, a lot of it was informed from my, graphic background, but over time, like the actual skill sets of the soft skills of talking to people, of getting product requirements, of doing soft user testing, right? Sitting down with people and watching giving them a couple tasks and watching them try to figure out how to do it and making notes on the challenges there. So that was where most of my experience came from, and then just continued doing what I do. So
Cool. Yeah, I saw something about someone pivoting from a psychology background. It's interesting because Jason mentioned a few different careers. Anyone come from like an engineering background? See a digital media here. And Christina, if you can't find your raising your hand, it's okay. We're not talking over each other right now. So if you want to just jump in, that's okay too.
I do think I saw a hand raise from Clarice as well. I don't know if that was.
Oh, yeah, that was a little, I kind of forgot that I did it. I was just gonna answer like the background question. I got my bachelor's in psych from FSU, and then I did the coding boot camp at UCF, so it was pretty formal. And then COVID happened, and I just recently like broke out into health insurance. So I'm wanting to incorporate the two because my role at my new job is to assist with some parts of the web development. So I just kind of want to learn just a little bit about the creating something for like the employee's perspective as opposed to like the client and the customer. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. And Olivia, you commented computer science.
That's correct.
Cool. Maybe give us a little bit of background there.
Sure. Well, I studied fine arts, and then I figured that, technical skills would come in handy in any field or any industry. So, I went to UPenn for computer science. They have a great program there. For anyone who's interested, because there's this one program where they take students without a background in engineering or computer science, and it's an accelerated program. So for your few years that you're there, they kind of train you to be a full-time software engineer. Because of my art background, that wasn't my direction to be a software engineer. Right now I'm working on digital team at a fashion company, but a lot of my peers went on to computer science, to software engineering, and that's it.
Cool. Thank you.
I also
Anyone else?
hand raises too.
Here, call them out.
I hope I said your name right.
Jasula.
So, yeah.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome.
Me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
we can see
sorry.
you.
Hi, everyone. Here from Orlando. I had a informal training in coming into UX. I come from immigration advising for F1 students for about 4 years. I've been working diligently to get into the UX industry for about 2 years. It was actually, I read a lot of books, did the whole thing, reading articles on Medium, a lot of self-taught, helping some friends that had nonprofit organizations and just they allowed me to take risk and just kind of just build their websites and, practice everything that I learned in books from, one of my favorite books here is Articulating Design Decisions. So a lot of self-taught for the past 2 years while I worked full-time. So that was kind of my side gig. And of course, attending events at Dukes. How do you guys pronounce it? Dukes? No?
Yeah.
Dude,
I've always been saying, everyone's like, what are you going
We're talking about mayonnaise now?
That's the French for it. Do UX.
Like we're talking about mayonnaise right now.
Downtown Orlando UX. We say do UX, but
UX.
do
UX. So sorry about that.
No, it's cool.
But no, in 2018, I attended an event where you had a speaker named Sarah Veslov. I bought her book, Building Designs. systems, and I kept in touch with her. I networked with pretty much a lot of people and up and coming and people that are in the industry, just emailing them. And I think it was this summer, she just reached out and said, hey, the company I'm at, they're looking to do an apprenticeship. Do you want to do it? I was like, sure thing. So I jumped on it. I'm currently doing an apprenticeship. I'm finally in the industry. And things are looking on the up and up. Now they're talking about bringing a UX designer full time. So that'll mean I can leave my immigration advising position and focus full time as a user experience designer. So network, a lot of reading, and a lot of questions, and yeah.
That is so awesome to hear that you ended up getting an opportunity through a speaker at one of our past
From
events.
you guys.
That's excellent.
Congratulations.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Thank you.
That is cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And Trey, I see your raised hand here.
Yeah, so I have a very interesting journey. First, I started off at the University of Georgia, and started off majoring in real estate, and kind of realized that it was a lot of financial stuff. But by the time I realized this, I was so far gone in the program, so I'm just going to finish it out. But I'm going to add another major, which was marketing. So, so I now have a double. So I had a double major, real estate and marketing. So I graduated back in 2011 from University of Georgia, and basically my work experience has been in the marketing field. It was a little over 5 years ago. Yeah, I started working for a local home builder they call John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods. I got a job there as a digital marketing specialist. So that was dealing with managing the content on the website, dealing with social media and all that good stuff. And I also created like digital marketing collateral. That was kind of where I first started flexing my design muscle. Whether it was just like little graphics for the website or, helping tweak some collateral. That was a lot of what I did. And then I got brought into Pulte Group because Pulte Group actually acquired John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods. And so I've been there for about 4.5 years now. And now I'm a web content coordinator. And what really got me into the UX side of things is once I got to Pulte Group, my job changed from being like the actual marketing coordinator to, it was almost like I was the marketing coordinator that my current jobs regions have. As a matter of fact, I was doing kind of the work that I think our regional office in Orlando is right there off Conroy when you get on the I-4. I've actually seen. I was like, oh, that's where Tristan and those work. Yeah, so I work with a lot of IT teams now, and we help design website enhancements. And I just decided to raise my hand and say, hey, if we need some mock-ups or layouts of what you want this page to look like, I would like to, take my hand at that. I'm quite handy with a design tool. At the time I was using, I started off actually making comps with PowerPoint, believe it or not, which was very interesting. And so one day I was just like, there's got to be an actual program. So one time I went to like a UX meetup. I think it was the UX meetup group in Atlanta. I think somebody mentioned that the General Assembly in Atlanta was having a free Adobe XD session. So I just took it upon myself to go on a Saturday and just spent basically a Saturday morning and an afternoon learning all about Adobe XD, and went to my boss with it and said, hey, this is only going to cost $10 a month. Why don't I just start using this as a design tool? And been using it ever since. So I've got about almost 3 years of experience of Adobe XD usage. So what I do now is, aside from actually helping manage the content on the website, is if we are designing an enhancement on the website, I'll design the comps for it. So basically going through a review process with me and my manager, who's the director of digital marketing technology, and working with IT teams to make sure that we are basically capturing all the requirements of the project. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, there you've transitioned a couple of different educational paths to get to where you are, which is very cool. Everyone, thank you for sharing what your backgrounds are. As you can see, it's pretty diverse, and you can see in the chat that people are even transitioning their their past careers and experiences that they've had into UX, and not just having what their educational background was. We'll let Abhishek do the next question, and we'll move on to another topic here.
Hey everyone. So this is a question I would love to sort of learn more about from everyone here. What skills have you found to be the most valuable in a UX design role? Sort of as you're starting it, as you're transitioning into it, or even if you've been doing it for a while, I'm curious sort of what skills have you found to be the most valuable in a UX design role? I don't see, okay, I see one, James.
James.
Yeah, let's go for it, James.
I would say that what's been most valuable is the ability to effectively interview users and conduct testing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being able to really dig in and, harvest the information you really need to get out of, getting the most out of each participant.
Yeah, that's so true. Do you have any tips for us, kind of how you conduct these interviews, or you've sort of seen them do it, or you've found them to be more useful?
Yeah, so given COVID, I've had to do some testing remotely, and I would share a prototype and from XD, and then have them share their screen on Zoom and watch them go through it, and then just get into like a deeper discussion about, what areas that maybe they had issues with, or, what they found enjoyable, what they like, dislike, etc. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
As we sort of look at more folks, please raise your hands if you can think of things that are valuable sort of in a design role. I can go next as we sort of look at who's going to come up. I think for me, it's sort of realizing that I am more sort of a collector of ideas versus like it's my idea. It's sort of like herding sheep or something similar. I've never done that, so I'm not exactly sure what that feels like. But it's about trying to get the best idea and trying to make sure that's the one that goes out the door and meets your customer. And more often than not, you tend to like your own ideas the most, the more time you spend on it. But it's really realizing at all times sort of, this is in the best interest of the customer, sort of like self-awareness, I guess, on one level, being something that's super valuable from my perspective. What do you guys think, and girls? What skills have you found to be the most valuable in a UX design role?
Yeah, and
holding opinions loosely, and I'd be very interested in having them expand on that a bit.
I think that was Rick.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I in my experience, people tend to, as you said, the more you work on something, the more invested you become in your own notion of what something should be. Let's say a design pattern selection as an example, and you might be convinced that that particular design pattern is the best way to implement it, implement the solution, and you might be wrong, but the problem is once you've latched onto that, if you're not willing to hold your opinions loosely, if you're not willing to listen to other people, research that might back up the opinion, the facts contrary to what your opinion is, then you're not going to be, I don't feel you'll be successful or possibly even well liked. Like, because you have to understand that you're not always going to be right at the end of the day. You can have those strong opinions, and you can go somewhat based anecdotally and based on your experience, but you should always be willing to hear something out, whether it's a verbal argument in the design or development pit, or actual user research that's presented to you, so that when you go, okay, well, maybe I was wrong about that, and maybe I should consider these other options instead. So, I mean, that's what I mean by holding opinions loosely. You can hold them strongly, but also be willing to let them go and give them up if a case is presented against that makes a better case and makes a better experience. So.
Yeah, I read this article, I think it was about 6 or 8 months ago, that talked about strong opinions weakly held, a framework for thinking and working towards problems, and which I found to be really useful. I think there's also always sort of a personal progress on like how strong these opinions are for you and how are you holding on to them. But I found the framework as always like, what you're talking about, but in general, you're trying to see if others can convince you otherwise in very open perspective. So I found that to be quite useful.
Yeah, several people have mentioned adaptability. Does anyone that chimed in on the chat want to contribute there and maybe shed more light?
Yeah, I see Shelby, Jesse.
I see a hand raise.
2D.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that name wrong.
That is fine. I've noticed that when I compare working in the field of technology to my past work experience, changes happen very quickly, and I've noticed that adaptability is something that I've maybe thought I had before, but I think now I really have it. It's been a very useful skill to not to be too married to the current state of your product or your ideas and just be able to throw everything out the window in 1 second. It's not easy, but I've noticed it's a very valuable skill. Killing your babies.
Awesome, thank you.
Good advice for everyone. One thing I'm seeing is that no one's really like talking about specific tools or frameworks, which I think is very interesting. It seems more kind of nuanced skill set around sort of the work we're doing day in and day out. So I'm curious, sort of, as you think about this question of what are some skills you have found valuable, is learning a tool like Sketch or Figma, would you consider that an asset as you think about value in terms of UX design role, or is that just something that you do as part of like any other tool? I'm curious if folks think tools are assets in this context.
I know I personally, started with using Adobe Illustrator, right? And that the space has changed a lot since then. Besides using pen and pencil, right? Like drawing, using the whiteboard. I find the whiteboard a great asset, and now transitioning into like tools like Miro and being able to collaborate in a virtual whiteboard space. But the tool itself, now prototyping tools, they're changing so much every day. The space is opened up for what we do. I know Acture, Figma, Sketch, the space has just really diversified a lot and given us an opportunity to do a lot more with not just visual design, but also interactive prototypes, which I love. But getting locked into a single tool, I think it's cool to be diverse now, because you can pivot pretty easily. And I know even when as a hiring manager looking at it, you can see, well, if they've used a prototyping tool, they're likely to be able to understand the fundamentals and transition to one of these other tools that we have.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me interjecting, the tools are oftentimes very similar in their design, their layout, and their tool set, that while there might be some differences and a few learning curves, that it's not impossible to get over, right? Like if you know one, it's very easy to pick up another. So
Yeah, absolutely. I know, Christian, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, so I guess you're asking about like software or things like that or tools, but I guess the biggest leap I've seen throughout my past year has been the development of like my UI skills. And I know I've heard a lot of different designers talk about the differences between UX and UI, and I've heard various opinions on that. And the best thing I've heard so far is that they're two sides to the same coin. And after I really took the time to develop those skills, I saw a noticeable difference because I spent most of my first part learning UX, and I just felt like I couldn't translate those ideas and those things efficiently on the screen as well as I wanted to, whether it was like skills in typography or, even like color theory, spacing, alignment, all of those sorts of things. But learning UI helped me solve also problems, not just as far as like an aesthetic perspective, but like I said, with spacing and alignment and making things more scannable, up pop, down pop, things like that. I noticed a boom from my usability testing results and things like that I got from people, that I was able, even making things more accessible as well too. And I know, everyone's got their opinion on like the UX UI thing, but adding that skill set helps my UX tremendously.
Yeah, and I think that also highlights like how all these skills are sort of interdependent and sort of aid each other. You want to produce better designs so you can test better, and sort of when you're in testing, you want to learn how to do testing better so you can get to the right answers. So it's really fascinating how learning one skill across the spectrum allows you to, or forces you almost, to try to learn another skill that is coincidental to it. Cool.
Yeah, and it's funny with the journey too, because I mean, the way I learned that I needed to do it was actually through Wes. Wes had a session with me one day, and we were going over some portfolio stuff and resume stuff, and he was giving me a lot of great constructive criticism. And like after that session, I knew what I really needed to work on. So, I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of skills, but like I think to become and I'm not quite there yet, about there, but like to become a good designer or even to progress as time goes on, I mean, there's a lot of things that contribute to the whole package, as you said, that are intertwined. And that's networking through meetups like this, that's developing your technical skills, maybe do some copy work like once a week or something like that, making sure you brush up on, interviewing people and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a whole package, and you really just have to, I guess, put the work in and try to work on the things that you're bad at. But you're totally right.
I don't see any hand raised.
All right, yeah. Thank you for that feedback, and thank you, Christian, for the shout out too. Maybe we'll move on to the next question, just so that we can get through some more of these too. And Jason will talk about the next one here.
Sure thing. So, the fire breather slide. What opportunities are out there for UX newcomers to showcase their skill and gain experience? Some of the starters here are hackathons, challenges, redesigns, and since Jasula just mentioned, getting an opportunity through a speaker, I think I'll throw networking into that list as well, because just meeting other people in the field and learning what they do and how they do what they do is a great way to find opportunities that you might not see on just a job listing board too. So feel free to raise your hand and let us know what opportunities that you've been able to take advantage of or that you've seen to showcase your skill and experience and to progress your career. James, do you want to talk about the workshops and what you've seen there?
Sure. So in Atlanta, I'm also part of a group called UX Helpers, and we often have sessions kind of like the last one with Do UX, where you actively work on something. So it gives all the newcomers the opportunity to kind of flex their muscles a little bit, and get some constructive feedback on that as well. Whiteboard sessions, etc.
It's awesome. It makes me think we should do more workshop sessions with our meetups. The last one was really fun.
Yep, definitely was.
Anybody else have any ideas or opportunities that they've taken advantage of? Katie, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, I'll go ahead and represent Code for Orlando. I've been a part of Code for Orlando since 2016, I think. They're a Code for America brigade, and we try to make Orlando a better place to live, work, and play. And it's a really great place to try out any of your skills, but UX is definitely needed. And speaking of hackathons, we've got the National Day of Civic Hacking coming up. And so I invite all of you to please come and bring your skills.
Can you maybe give a little bit more about like what a hackathon would look like for a UXer?
So we've done things like ideation sessions. We've done journey maps. A lot of it has to do with improving the government for the city that you live in our case, Orlando. So some of it even involves user research. And anything and everything. And actually, you know, we need managers and coders, and we need it all.
Cool. Yeah, I guess some folks are asking if you could throw that in the chat too. That'd be awesome.
Oh, sure.
You know, thinking a little bit outside of the UX newcomers, and I'm going to put Matt on the spot here a little bit because not only has he helped a lot with this group, but Matt, you've talked a lot outside of Ducks and Do UX and outside of your direct work environment. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that you've had to speak with different groups, and I think that's given you a lot of visibility, not only making you visible to people, but also letting you see what else is out there, which is kind of cool.
Sure, yeah. So I am a strong believer that one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And so, I mean, anytime I've ever tried to, you know, give a presentation or a talk or something, I feel like I'm always like honing my skills and learning something new about a topic, a tool, an activity, whatever. So that's definitely kind of a great way to develop. And I mean, even, you know, we as a community, we are always looking to kind of help highlight our members, right? So if you have a topic in the field of UX that you want to speak to, that you want to teach us all about, we would very much kind of like welcome that as well. So definitely something to be aware of, that we're always looking for speakers. And yeah, so I've spoken at conferences. That's always, it's always a little stressful, but it's also a very exciting thing to do. In fact, I've even had the opportunity to speak abroad. So I've spoken in Finland and Budapest, which were both very cool and interesting experiences. So you kind of never know where life's going to take you. And oftentimes just, I think a couple of people have mentioned like the opportunities that come just from putting yourself out there and connecting with other people. A lot of those speaking opportunities I've gotten just because I've, you know, put myself out there and connected with people, going to conferences, meetups, that kind of thing.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, of course.
So maybe if there's no one else raising their hand, we will move on to the next question here. And how does one find mentorship, or what was mentorship like for you in this space? So we'll throw it out there. And is there anyone that has had someone mentoring them, and what has that been like? How did you get them to participate with you, or also the other way around, if you've been mentoring someone or anyone out there? It would be awesome to hear those stories and let others kind of get some insights. James, you want to jump in there?
I'd love to. So Wes actually helped me out a lot. and going through my portfolio, what was it, about a year ago or so, and it was a huge deal, to get some outside perspective and get some direction on where to go, and you get to learn more and more about other people. I'm also mentoring others now, through UX helpers and everything else. And it's really great, and it's actually very fulfilling to see others develop, when you just help them out a little bit.
That's awesome, James. I feel like meetups like this, even though the content sometimes is one directional, you might have a speaker just, sharing something on stage. Usually at the end of the meetup, there's usually some social time and you get to connect with other people. And, those conversations themselves end up being conversations about getting into the field or what they do in the field. And, that is one form of mentorship in itself. I recently joined, I'll paste it in the chat, the South Florida UX Slack channel started their own mentorship hours site. It's fluxhours.com, where a lot of UX team leads and product designers and UX managers and directors of engineering and folks have volunteered their time and set up calendar booking hours to meet with people that are interested in getting in the field or leveling up in UX. And so taking advantage of things like that, there's a lot of those out there nationally. That specific one that I pasted in, fluxhours.com, is specific to South Florida, but there's a few Orlando people in there as well. So things like that, I would say don't be afraid to reach out to people that are in the field and just ask if they'd be willing to chat with you about what they do. Most people are really friendly in this industry, and I feel like I've learned so much of what I do in my day-to-day from other people that have been kind enough to write about it or talk to me about it, that I always feel I always enjoy getting to mentor and talk to other people about how things work in the industry and how to find a job in the UX industry, how to transition even. So reach out to people, I think is my answer to the question on the slide.
Cool, thanks, Jason. Yeah, I think about James and the time that we connected. James was actually asking for feedback at a different session. It was like a portfolio review kind of thing, and we were just chatting afterwards and asking him how it went. Right? we were just kind of talking, and he's like, I don't know, I'm not really sure. I'm like, well, if you want another perspective, let's just sync up and talk. And so that was kind of a interesting way we met. I don't think that it was not intentional. It was just through a conversation and us talking to each other and getting to know each other a bit more, which making that connection was really meaningful. So it was good.
It's amazing what just a little bit of outside perspective can do for you, because you get so close to the work when you're, first starting out and working on a portfolio, that it's kind of hard to see some things that they are just not apparent to you. So extremely helpful.
Cool.
I don't have the ability to raise my hand, but I definitely want to mention Design Lab. I think there's a couple of students in here right now, and what it basically is it's structured to be a mentorship program. And I got really lucky, and I was paired with a really awesome designer based in Orlando. And at the time, I didn't know anyone here. I didn't know anyone in the design community. So for me, where it was valuable was I was getting to talk to an expert in the field and feel comfortable with that person and not being afraid to fail in front of them. So having that one-on-one was definitely special. It definitely helped me overcome being afraid to show my work because you're on a schedule where you have to show your mentor something. So that's where I found value. Is it's kind of like a safe space. You've got someone who's not gonna, judge you for not being good enough. So.
Yeah, and I'll kind of chime in on that a little bit more too. Personally, I know that the people that I have connected with have helped me. I think Jason touched on that a little bit too, instead of Matt, but everyone that I've been able to connect with, I've always learned something and gotten a lot from it. Either the way they approach something, the way they respond to either the way I'm providing. I remember I provided a piece of feedback once that it was like, I saw the look on their face and I was like, oh no, like what did I do? And I realized that like there are different ways that you can communicate. And so yeah, it's definitely worth taking the time to try to ask for other people's feedback. And it is at the end of the day what we do. Listening to what other people say and think, that's an important part of it. So being able to do that is great. Thank you all for sharing your experiences there.
Oh, Selena has her hand raised.
Oh, Selena, jump in.
Hey guys. So I just want to mention that mentoring is another opportunity, like putting yourself out there. You learn so much from mentoring because you forget what it's like to start out, and the trade has changed over time. So you still kind of like get that essence, that like kind of like the eye of the tiger, like you want it. So they kind of motivate you, like little mentees, they motivate you and you learn so much from them and their perspective, and it kind of helps you in your own perspective. So another way to get mentorship is to volunteer with the people you want to mentor, be your mentor. So that's like hackathons. I would like find people that were at a hackathon and I would go there and pretty much be part of their group just to see how they work. And we became friends. So my TAs, anytime they offered like, we're gonna do this, or if it's an open source project, I always offer to help because that's how you learn, or like indirectly from them as well. So yeah, that's another opportunity.
Selena, you volunteered with the like UX research project we had for Downtown Orlando UX, like researching the participants and who we're serving and what the topic should be, and gave a whole presentation on that. I think that itself was a great example.
Yeah, Leah and I jumped on that opportunity. Leah and I also did a hackathon like last November. Killed me, but putting yourself out there, you learn so much.
Cool, thank you very much. And we'll let Leah jump into the next one here.
All right. What are some do's and don'ts when building a portfolio or resume?
I'll raise my hand, but I can go. Do look at a lot of different portfolios, like as many as you can look at. Don't start building with the presentation layer first. I spent so many months just trying to figure out how my portfolio is going to look until I realized that the hard part is what you write in it and what you're trying to say in it. And then I scrapped the first part and then I worked on the second part, which took almost as long, if not longer. And then in the end, I'm like, I'm going to go with a minimal layout with as much content as possible. Because I'm not really a visual designer and I don't want to like pretend like I am one. So it was easier almost to reverse the question of what do I want to share with what do I want to tell people about me, and then what's the neatest way I can find a presentation for it that's okay with who I am. Yeah, that's my do and don't.
And Selena, you get your hand raised again?
Yeah, that was pretty much piggyback on the content. It's so important. I think people just with HTML profiles, and they're amazing because just what they say. I think people tend to think like the UI is so important, but it's not. It's what you say in it. Getting straight to the point, having a very clear idea of what you do is very important. And I will also recommend not to do those like bars where it says I have 7% knowledge of Figma or Adobe. Like just get rid of those progress bars. They're nothing. But yeah, the content is super important.
And remembering back through the chat, Trey had mentioned that he'd gotten different advice from different people over time on his own resume, and sometimes conflicting advice. Do you want to talk to that at all, Trey?
I mean, I don't really have like a big story behind it. It's just sometimes I've shown one person my portfolio. I said, well, this is good, but you need to change this, this, and this. I changed this, this, and this. Someone else looks at it and they're like, oh yeah, well, you don't need to do this. But I was like, what someone else just told me to do. It's just like, yeah. There's not really a big story behind it. It's just, that's what it is.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. That's kind of why I picked on that from the chat, is that, you know, I think depending on the role you're applying to, like what the day-to-day for that role is might look very different from you know, even the same job title in different companies. So you might get very conflicting advice on what you should highlight within your portfolio and what things you should talk about in the resume line items. So thought I'd ask about that.
Yeah, I can't raise my hand. Kevin, we'll let you jump in, and then maybe I can go after Kevin here unless someone else raises their hand. So Kevin, go ahead.
You're muted.
You're muted, Kevin.
Always the mute button. Hey everybody, my name's Kevin, and I work here with actually Wes, Leah, and at Advent Health. One thing that I did when I started my portfolio was I kind of got hung up on the whole idea of building a website. So I kept like looking for websites to use like templates and build my portfolio out there. What I realized is that I got some advice from somebody that I don't even need a website to put my portfolio together. I basically put together a PDF, and this PDF just had some slides that I put together in Figma, and I was able to tell a story through the PDF. Because when people are looking at a PDF versus a website, on a website, what happens, sorry for the background noise, by the way. But what happens with a website is that people are going to look at your portfolio in whatever order they like. While when you have a PDF or just like a slide deck that you can show people, you get to tell that story however you like. And a lot of, at least from my understanding, a lot of design managers they like the idea of being able to see a story and what your design reasons are. You don't want to put up pretty glitzy screens if you don't have a reason for making things super high fidelity, super glitzy. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a scatterbrained way of saying you're not limited to what you think. You don't have to limit yourself to everything. You can always explore different avenues and yeah, show your design process. That's the biggest thing.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah. You know, one of the things I was going to say is, you know, like Kevin talked about a story, telling a story, but really showing your process. To me, that's something that I always want to be able to kind of get a glimmer and kind of a little bit of insight into what your process is and how you kind of approach it, because putting together something really glossy at the front end, it took a bit to get there, and being able to understand how your approach was, there's probably not a right or wrong there, but helping kind of get some understanding of how you approach something is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I'd like to mention something too, is I had someone recently asking me, you know, what's the best, and this kind of bleeds into our discussion about tools, is like, what's the best tool when building a portfolio? And like, after like being able to think about it, I was like, well, it really just depends on what you're trying to showcase. Like, what skills are you trying to elevate? So you can spend all day hating on something like Squarespace because it's all templatized. But let's say you're focused right now on putting together a really like solid case study. where you want to focus on the content and copy, if you have time constraints, that might even be the best option so that you can have like really thorough case studies.
Yeah, yeah, and Trey asked a little bit about what does that showing a process mean. You started somewhere, right? Did you start with a story? Did you start with an idea? And how did you get to the finished thing? So did you go do some research and you collected that research and you have some statistics behind it, or do you have analysis that you've done, or wireframes that you kind of put together, or sketches showing how you got there? Is what I mean by showing that process. So not showing the double diamond, but showing how you actually applied each of those things as you went through it. I hope that's a little bit more clear.
And I can add something more to that as well. One of the, I think on my first day at Party MS, I don't know if I'm still here, I asked Matt sort of what are the qualities that would make someone a good designer at Party MS. And Matt didn't actually answer my question specific to Party MS. I think he just generally answered about what someone requires to, I guess, to be a generally good designer. And one of the first things he told me, which I remember still very well, is like, you need intention. You have to be intentional about what you're trying to build, what you're trying to make, how you want to change the world, or how do you want to make a process better for someone. And I think from what I've seen in portfolios, and even as sort of building my own periodically, just because it's a fun activity for me, I realized that if you set out to achieve something with a strong intention, it's highly unlikely you got to the end exactly how you planned it. But in general, the process is sort of how did you get there, or did you get there at all? Personally, I like the stories when someone says, I couldn't get to my end goal because of other challenges or things that came up, like what went wrong. But also at the same time, sometimes you do get to the right business or user goal. But it's not just about sort of, here is the goal we reached, but it's about sort of, here is how I approached the problem. I went through any process. Each person's process is probably a little different. So kind of going through, what is it that took for you and your team and as other people you were working with to get to a particular outcome that you were trying to get to, which is hopefully your original intention to begin with. But that's kind of where I grow when I think about what is someone's process in a design portfolio. And I hope that helps.
Awesome. Thank you, Abhishek. I know we could probably spend more time on this, but maybe we'll move on to the next question now. I think that's going to be Matt, if you can, Matt.
Hey, so what challenges can someone with little to no experience expect and prepare for when trying to get into UX? So if you kind of are going through this now, or kind of wondering, or maybe have faced some of these challenges, feel free to chime in chat and raise your hand, and we'll kind of continue this conversation. I can kick off with the challenges that I faced as a developer who wanted to get into UX, and I was actually kind of pushing for UX at the company that I worked for. It was really a big challenge to like advocate and to help other people at the company to know what UX was and why we should care about it. Of course, I was in a position where I was already inside of the company, and I definitely appreciate the challenges of like even trying to get your foot in the door in the first place. But yeah, I think trying to like start that discipline at the organization I was at, and help teach others what UX was when I was still just kind of learning on my own, kind of just, diving into books and stuff, was an interesting challenge that I definitely faced and was very hard. In fact, that was I think that was a 3-year journey, and as part of my career there. So yeah, let's see. Anybody else have any thoughts around the challenges that you might face with little or no experience that you should kind of prepare for trying to get into UX?
In the chat, Kathleen said, "Jobs all want experience," and that's true. I think every listing you find, even for an associate or junior level, sometimes it's like 1 to 2 years of experience at least. And to give a little bit of a potential solution for that, a lot of people are looking at transitions into the UX field, and so as much as possible, if you can, find ways to leverage your past experience in an applicable way toward a role that you're applying to. Through the Flux Hours program, I spoke to one person who had a background in marketing and was trying to transition to UX, and their background was in funnels and conversion, and a lot of that ties directly to UX. And on top of that, I think there are now more and more UX roles within the marketing side. I was chatting with Matt about this the other night. There are marketing roles UX roles on the marketing side of product organization. So if you want to get into product UX work, now I was talking about getting your foot in the door sometimes. Maybe an opportunity within UX on the marketing side of a product org will allow you to get your foot into the door with UX and then kind of move within product. Or you might find that that's where you enjoy being. If your background is in marketing, maybe that is the familiar place that you enjoy being. So looking to leverage your strengths and any experience that you can to use to kind of get into the field, I think is the best advice I have for the little to no experience piece.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And I see some folks kind of talking about that, expected experience when trying to apply for jobs. And that's always, I don't know. I always also say, if you feel like you're a good match for what they're looking for, apply, even if you don't quite meet the requirements. But, let's always see what'll happen. I did see a couple of hands went up. One looks like might have gone down. I'm not sure where they went. Oh, there. Taiti? I'm totally pronouncing your name wrong. I'm very confident.
That's okay. No worries. It's Tutti. So, yeah, it's weird. I would say that's something that when I started transitioning to UX from my previous career that I didn't really think about was how much I would think about the time that it would take to study and learn and get myself familiar with all the tools and concepts and basically all the theoretical information. But I didn't think so much was how much time is involved with networking and meeting with people, and how much time of the learning part actually comes from those people. So I noticed James commenting on my comment in the chat that it takes a lot of time, and that's just, it's when it feels like it's you. Why is this so slow for me? It's not just you, it's everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Her hand raised too.
Yeah,
Selena.
Yeah, so I see a lot of people are talking about code in the chat. So I am a front-end developer and a UX designer. I'm like 2 roles in one. And it really depends on your organization. My organization really tries to find people that can design and code, maybe because we're cheaper and it's just less people in the organization. But it does help coding, because understanding the constraints allows you to create more valuable testing. It's not like just creating ideas in your head and yeah, let's just go for it. I'm better coming up with ideas and understanding constraints of what we can do and understanding that technical depth. But again, it depends on how big that design team is. We have a very small, scrappy design team. It's like 3 people. So if you have a big design team, probably don't need to know code. Does it help to learn? I think so. Just taking an HTML, CSS, just seeing if it's for you. I think you should try. I think coding does help you to understand design a lot better.
Yeah, to springboard off that a little bit, I think one of the really big values in the UX world is that cross-functional discipline. So I also have a development background, and I definitely have taken advantage of that kind of cross-functional knowledge of being able to kind of speak and understand a lot of the technical sides of things as well as the more human sides of things. But I mean, you know, as we were talking about with marketing, that's another aspect that you can kind of build off of and you know, hit that nice cross-functional place where you can bring a lot of value. Just, you know, whether you're a T-shaped person or a broken comb-shaped person, or if you're not getting these references at all, just, you know, knowing you're more than just UX and engaging with the different disciplines across your organization is really important.
Yeah, a couple of people have mentioned the job description thing. I think that's certainly a challenge to expect, but also know that not everybody's job descriptions are up to date or accurate. I remember I applied to positions that required, you know, design background and coding backgrounds, and I was just very honest with, you know, whoever I got in contact with. I let them know my strengths and my skills, and a lot of the time I still got an interview out of it because they wanted to learn more about that side of me versus what was listed in the job description. So
Cool. Thank you. I think we'll move on to the next question now. Running short on time here. So Abhishek.
The next question is, what was your approach to finding job opportunities? I can maybe kick this off with my own approach. So I was in school trying to find an internship first and then a full-time job after that. I actually went through a very intensive, very statistically oriented approach to job opportunities. I realized that getting a job was a zero-sum game, unfortunately. And the higher the volume of applications, the larger the possibility of me getting a job. So I applied a lot and I didn't get any callbacks. So then I went back to actually what Leah said in the previous question of trying to find the right jobs. So I started talking to recruiters and telling them I was junior. I was looking for a very specific kind of role. Is your team open to hiring? So I think the more I did it, the more I sort of realized that the approach changes based on the stage you're in. If you're in the fourth interview versus the first interview, but I focus only on trying to get to the next round versus trying to get all the way. All I need is the first interview and the next one and the next one, and then finally you're sort of there. So that helps sort of orient me towards finding a job. I'm curious what other people's experiences have been or what your unique approach is. Even doesn't have to be unique, but sort of what you think about the approach to finding new job opportunities for you. Feel free to put it in the chat, raise your hand, and tell us more.
I guess I'll throw one out there is recruiters get paid to do this. So a lot of times you can work with a good recruiter and they can find the right, it's not just a job. That's one of the tough things is you're out there looking at all the postings and trying to figure out if this is the right position for you. As much as a recruiter wants to place you into a job because they're going to get a commission off of that, they also, if you don't stick around or you're not the right person for that role, then they won't get paid. So they want you to get a position in the right gig. So they're going to get to know you and try to understand a little bit about what it is that you're doing. And then also they'll get to know the company and what their needs are. And that can, building that kind of relationship with a recruiter, not meaning a recruiter that just reached out to you, you know, through LinkedIn and sent you a, hey, I got a job. Do you want to check it out? Get to know the recruiter and talk to them. I think I know that I've met some good recruiters over the years, and the good ones really do know who the candidate is and know who the company is and what the company's looking for. It has been really a great experience from what I've seen, even though it may not have been the way that I've gotten all of my jobs. It's just I have worked with recruiters and seen them help people as well.
I'm curious if any others, yeah, anyone else has any interesting approaches that they would like to share with others.
I'll throw out another one. Attending things like this. You guys know, if you've done this, is at the end we do ask if there are any job opportunities out there. So sometimes, not always, and maybe not even usually, but sometimes there are career fairs, but also these kind of events at the end have people saying, "Hey, we're looking for somebody doing this." If you guys are active on or Design Orlando Slack, there's a job section there. Most Slack groups have a job section. So those are great places to be looking, because then you can reach out to the person that posted and ask them a little bit more about it and get to know about the company or the gig. And that just gives you a little bit more, just looking on LinkedIn jobs is great. And so is, Indeed and many of the other ones that are out there, Glassdoor. But having a connection with someone that's kind of got their, giving you feedback on what the role is really, really helpful.
Yeah. Selena.
Say, it's me again. I'm a unique way is content marketing, is to really write about the stuff you're working on, either on LinkedIn or Medium. There's many times I've gotten a job opportunity just because I wrote something on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's great.
Like I just recently, I was open about my struggles with a design system like 3 days ago. And my old TA saw it, hit me up, and then connected me with someone on his team. And they're like talking to me about a job opportunity. And I was like, I didn't want this, but it just kind of happens randomly. There was one time I posted something on my Instagram story and I was working on something and I got a job through that, like a freelancing job through that. It's just being very open about, you don't have to know everything. You just have to be open about your struggles or what you're currently working on, or just have like a very strong opinion about something in the industry. What you're trying to do is just get your face out there, because right now you're just hidden and no one knows you exist. So you just want to get yourself out there.
That's great. Thank you. And let me see, no other hands raised. So we're going to jump to the next one here. We'll let Jason take this one.
Yeah, what have you learned from past interview experiences? Things that you could share with the group, and let us know kind of what you've gleaned from some of those some past opportunities to interview for UX roles. Go ahead, Selena. Or was that from the previous one? I got you. Oh. Rick?
Yeah, so don't leave your sunglasses on top of your head. I know it sounds silly, but it's all about presenting professional appearance. And so one of the jobs that I did end up getting, fortunately, I found out after the fact during the interview process that I became known as the guy who didn't take his sunglasses off his head, and they sort of thought that was funny and also mildly disrespectful in a certain way. So really, that's more of a way of just saying, be aware of your professional appearance. Go in and just make sure that you look good, that you look the part, that you don't have anything out of place that really would be considered unprofessional. So
cool.
And Trudy.
I'd say don't be too determined to research the people who are going to interview you, because they might change in a very last minute, and then you did all this research. I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about this. Oh, you wrote that article, that was great. And then the people change.
Yeah, but knowing something about the company, though, is key. That's kind of, it seems kind of obvious, but I know that I have talked to people that I start asking them why the company that we're at, and you can tell that they didn't really get what the company was, right? And then you start to wonder, like, how invested are they going to be in the company, or is it just about like kind of getting the gig? And oh, I got to tell you, and this probably isn't as relevant now, but one of them that really, someone said, oh, I love this because it's right down the street. Someone told me that at an interview, and I was like, oh, that's the number one reason for this job, right? Like, that kind of went through my head, and I know that I knew what they meant and we got past it, but it was just kind of it's kind of interesting, like in an interview setting, that like, yeah, commuting though, some of you folks in Atlanta, right, some of those commutes can be brutal, so that can make a big difference, but it's kind of interesting. Anyone have any interviews via virtual interviews? No? My interview at Advent Health was virtual. That's how I met the whole team. I did meet the our director directly just over coffee, and we met via LinkedIn and just kind of connected that way. But yeah, the kind of legit interview was done via a Zoom call, kind of like this, and met the team. They all asked a bunch of questions, and it was kind of a cool experience, and it still gave me an opportunity to let them connect with me. But it was interesting doing it remotely instead of doing it in person.
And it looks like Rick has his hands up.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Rick.
I had one remote interview that really sort of threw me for a loop, because it wasn't what I would consider a traditional remote interview. I mean, I've had conference calls, I've done some Zoom interviews. This particular one was where they wanted me to, they had a web app that they utilized. It was a third-party web app, and you would be asked some questions, and then you would have to record a 1 to 2 minute response, and then hit submit. And if you went over, you went over. Like, it would cut it off, right? So it presented its own set of challenges, because it wasn't conversational. There was no way to sort of gauge where you were going with it, because you're simply just doing almost like the equivalent of a teledate introduction, right? Like, I didn't care for it, and it presents its own sets of challenges, because you really can't. There really isn't an interpersonal connection when you're doing something like that. So.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of that. I know what you're talking about, and I've also been the hiring manager and seen those. Those are really helpful. You can tell people are nervous though, and since I've done them, I could relate to it. But I did find them really good resources as a hiring manager too, because you could kind of make a connection with that person before you met them on a call or something.
That's an interesting. It's interesting to hear the other side of that. Like.
Yeah, it was a great resource, and I don't know that it made the like go or no go, but it just gave me I was more familiar with that person before I had a face-to-face interview with them. But Christina, I want to give you an opportunity to jump in too.
Well, I've been doing a lot of remote interviews via Zoom and WebEx and all kinds of video apps. And lately, I've been going through this very long interviewing process. So far, I'm going to be going into phase 4 out of 6.
Wow.
Yeah, and there might be a 7th one. Not normally the thing I've run into when it comes to remote interviews, but here I am. One thing a friend of mine had pointed out to me that is a good idea for, like, I got recommended by this friend for this whole get this ball rolling, and part of the reason why I'm even being considered right now, and like I'm like one of the last candidates in there, and so I'm playing catch up with all the other candidates. And like because of her recommendation and because of my background with HTML and CSS and UX, they're even considering me. And so her tip for for these interviews was to stand up when you're doing a video interview. And so I kind of felt like I felt more confident when I'm talking to them, like I'm standing face to face with them in a sense. So I'm hoping that strategy helps me out. So far, so good. I mean, something tells me I have to get through the 6 to really find out like whether or not I either landed or they go with somebody else.
Wow. Well, good luck. And, it's funny. Earlier in my career, I got to like the 3rd interview at a company and I thought, oh, I'm a shoo-in, right? It's like, nope, I didn't get that job. But I felt more relaxed because I thought, well, I'm at the 3rd one, right? I've got this. No, I didn't. So it's kind of interesting seeing yourself continue through a long process. Can't let your guard down, but you also want to be comfortable with the folks you're talking to. But thanks for sharing that.
I would like to share something else on regards to that, what you were saying. So I thought I was a shoo-in with this one interview. I even saw them text in the chat. It's like, hey, did you get my message? It said, I like her. And then after that I had to talk to the manager or whatnot, and he was going to all these details about the projects and so forth, and I'm like, surely he won't be giving me all these details if they're really not gonna go with me here. So unfortunately I didn't end up with that. And I'm guessing it's they wanted somebody with more experience because they would be the only UXer there. So
yeah, you can just never tell, and a lot of times it's really just about timing and that kind of thing too. So I think we've kind of reached our time here, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next thing.